Welcome to the Smart and Soulful Money Podcast. I'm your host, Carrie B. Van Winkle. I'm a socially responsive investment advisor with Natural Investments, and a warm welcome to you. Today, I am talking with Jacque Saltsman. Very excited about our conversation. Jacque is an executive and leadership coach whose relentless mission is to help women own and amplify their unique leadership presence so they can have a greater impact on the people and industries that they serve. Jacque's vast experience in coaching, communication, well-being, and women's empowerment helps clients and organizations grow into their boldest potential. Jacque is a certified professional coach with advanced training in coactive coaching from the Coactive Training Institute. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Health Science with a focus on behavior change from Clemson University, as well as a multitude of other certifications in the field of mind, body, and spirit connection. With enthusiasm and great integrity, Jacque shows up 100% committed to guiding leaders on the adventure of deep, transformative, and long-lasting change. Welcome to the podcast, Jacque.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Jacque and I met serving on the board of an awesome nonprofit that was in Louisville, Kentucky called Breaking New Grounds. And Jacque is fantastic. And I'm so glad your bio includes the word adventure because you are a woman who just dives into life and brings joy and adventure to it. So
thank you.
I'm inspired by how you live.
Thank you. It's one of my values. Adventure.
Yeah. Of course. Awesome. Well, we might talk a little bit more about that then. In addition to what I just said in the intro, tell us more about your work in the world.
Well, in a nutshell, I help women grow into the powerful leaders that they are meant to be so that they can have a greater impact on the industries where they work, the communities they serve, their families, and most importantly, themselves. And also so they can live healthier and more meaningful lives. And when I say leaders, I'm not always talking about, CEO or even people managers. It's really any woman who wants to grow her leadership capabilities within herself for any reason. And it could be a CEO who, has a lot of confidence, has a great leadership presence, but kind of looks back at her career and realizes she's gotten to this place, but she's had to sacrifice a lot of herself. She's had to wear a lot of masks to get here, and she gets to this point where she's done wearing the masks and wants help being more authentic. How do I take these masks off? How do I show up more authentic in the world? It could be an emerging leader, a more, potential leader, emerging leader who wants to, from an earlier point in their life, figure out who they are, what trajectory they're on, what's their purpose in life, how do they want to be a leader within themselves and in the community, what's their career path, and also building the confidence to help them plan that and also get there. Same with could be an entrepreneur, a nonprofit leader, a startup person. It even could be a mom, who is in the professional world, got out to raise kids for 5, 10, 15 years and is ready to go back to work and wants help redefining herself or rediscovering herself, who she is now in this more powerful place.
So what does that look like? More specifically, tell us what your work looks like with someone.
My main focus is one-on-one coaching with women, whether that's leaders, executives, again, entrepreneurs, all kinds of people. And I love the one-on-one coaching work. I also do group coaching. I'm getting ready to launch a more informal discussion circle for professional women, kind of come whenever you want. I also do retreats, one-day retreats, weekend retreats, and do some facilitation and training inside organizations. But one-on-one coaching is my main passion.
What led you to this work, or how did you decide that this was your work in the world?
I think like a lot of people in the helping profession, they received help in a particular way and turned around and wanted to give back. And I received coaching for business when I was doing massage therapy years and years ago. I hired a coach who was, I would say, half and half professional, business coaching and life coaching, to help me with my massage therapy business. And thinking if I just did different things in my business that I would love it more. What I realized, I was actually in the wrong profession, because once I realized what coaching was and had been exposed to it, I absolutely fell in love with it and started getting certifications and trainings and did everything under the sun I could, and became a coach and did life coaching for a while with women and entrepreneurs, a little bit of business coaching, and now focusing more on executives and leaders within organizations.
Our conversation today is really a dive into values. One of the key things that informs my work with my investment clients is understanding their values. And I have my own process for that, but I know that there are professionals out there like yourself who have thought about this more than I have more of a developed process for it and probably more tools than I have. And so I'm excited to just understand more how you work with clients to help them explore what values are and understand more clearly what their values are, and then how they want to choose to bring those into their life in a more intentional way. So let's just start out simply. What are values?
To me, values are what is most important to us. Those things, and they can be like what really drives us. What are the most important things in our lives? And those can be visible or invisible. It can be a thing like nature, your family, community, or it can be more of a characteristic, kind of one of those invisible things like honesty, integrity, harmony, loyalty. Values are incredibly personal. I don't think any two people will ever have the same values that mean the same thing to them. So it's an incredibly personal thing. And it is what is good and desirable to us as an individual. And again, everybody's is different. I like to say it's kind of like the oxygen we need to breathe. If we don't honor our values, we'll tend to wither, or maybe get disease, or something will come out unhealthy. But we won't thrive if we don't honor our values. So it's the oxygen we need to move forward in life. And I like to say it's our non-negotiables. But until we're clear about our values and actually living them, we tend to negotiate the heck out of them because we don't really know what they are.
Yeah, I agree that you said it's the oxygen. What was that again?
It's the oxygen we need to breathe, because without them, we will wither. We can't thrive.
Yes, and we can't thrive. I totally agree. I think we can get through life by taking action that's not necessarily connected to our deepest core values.
Right.
And a lot of us do that. And sometimes real life is, I feel like you just kind of have to do that to some degree. But the more we can connect to those deeply held values and have those reflected in our actions and in our life, that's where the juice is. That's where, like you said, that's how we truly thrive. Totally agree with you there.
Absolutely. And they probably will change over time and experience. Not 180, not completely, but they will shift and morph as we go through experiences. So, it's impossible to know at 16 or even 21 exactly what our values are, exactly what they're going to mean, and be living them completely, wholeheartedly, because we have to go through experiences to refine them, to really get to know what they are, because it's also part of knowing what we don't want, what we won't put up with in life too, that helps us really shape our values.
Do our values change as we live life or get older or get more experience? And so you said maybe they do and maybe they don't. Tell me a little bit more about that.
I've always been fascinated with, in anything with personal growth or emotions or personality or even neuroscience, is it nature versus nurture? And I don't think we'll ever be able to figure out that to a certain degree. So I think values are the same thing. They're partially innate. I think they come with us when we're born, but they're partially morphed by experiences. And I think the more experiences we have, they will shift a little bit. But I don't think, and unless you have a major big life experience, I can't imagine them shifting a complete 180. Maybe they do over time, but I think more maybe they have different meaning than they actually, completely change. So I do think they shift over time, over experiences, as we get wiser, things like that. Who comes into our life, the experiences we have, but I do believe a lot that we're definitely born with, and that won't change. And we may not know of them earlier, and we get to grow into them as we're finding ourselves.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about values, my own values, how some of them I feel like were maybe even somehow I was born with them, so justice and independence, I feel like those are two that very early I can remember examples of like how justice was important to me. Maybe I wouldn't know to say social justice as a kid, but
Right.
being fair and
Fairness.
just,
Yeah,
felt very important to me, even as a kid. And then how that started to look as I got more education about justice in the world and injustice in the world. And then what has changed around justice is how I want to act on that value. So how I focus my actions and how that's evolved.
The meaning of the values may change. They themselves stay pretty consistent.
At the same time, I think I have this value that feels more pressing to me now, or more top of the list now, which is around home and roots in a way that hasn't always been the case, where more in the past it felt like independence and exploration and some of these things, which are still important to me, but it's almost at this point in my life they've kind of flipped. Yeah, it's so dynamic too.
It is so dynamic. And also I think there's our environment growing up affect our acceptance of our value. For instance, I need a lot of stillness and simplicity. But I was raised by a pack of extroverts, wild extroverts. So I did not know that was okay, that was a need, because I didn't see anyone around me growing up really in my family or my extended family looking for that or honoring that or prioritizing that. It wasn't until I was much older and started experimenting with it that I learned that was actually very important to me.
And a positive thing, a positive value rather than a problem, I would guess.
Yes. Yeah.
What does it look like then when we don't have an understanding of our personal values?
Understanding and naming is one piece, and then actually acting on and truly living our values is the next step, because we can understand them and name them all day long, but if we're not living them, acting on them, living with that purpose and creating boundaries around them, it doesn't do a whole lot of good. Like, we can have the knowledge, but unless we're living it, it doesn't do as much good. And I think the biggest cost of not living our values is the waste of energy we spend, whether that's unconscious or conscious. It's just spinning our wheels, because we don't have our values to use sort of as this rudder or lens with which we can use to help make decisions or figure out which direction to go in. We end up spinning our wheels a lot. So it's not that we're not putting the energy into it. We could be giving 110%, but only getting like 60% output, because we're not focused. We're not going in the right directions. We're spinning our wheels and just kind of going in circles. And we're also, without having values, again, as that rudder, we're super susceptible to all the shoulds in life. All the shoulds and what everybody else is telling us we should do, both in our family, out in society, culture, in our industries, whatever it is we're very susceptible to what's trendy at the time, what everybody else is doing, versus really knowing what's best for us, because each individual person, we all are the authority on ourselves. And I think that's especially important for women to understand and live into right now. What that looks like if we're out of alignment, I think on the outside, you could probably see, it could be somebody who's super overwhelmed because they're taking on too much without a lot of boundaries. It could look like drifting or totally scattered or an unfocused person. So you could kind of see it from the outside, but I also think there's an element of, or the picture of that person who's out of alignment, but you can't see it from the outside. It's more of an inner experience, because on the outside, she has the job, a really good job. She has the family, she has friends, she has, everything, the house or the vacation. So she has everything on the list that she thinks she's supposed to need. Then on the inside, she's feeling empty or unfulfilled or like, this is it. Like I did everything I was supposed to. Why do I feel so empty? Or why do I feel something's not right here? So there's also that inner experience I think some people are having. I think that one's a lot less talked about.
But probably a very common experience.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a lot of people go through it at different parts of, different times in their lives. And that, again, why I fell in love with coaching is it is so focused on the individual and their experience and their authenticity and what their desires and dreams and vision and values are. There's zero cookie cutterness in coaching. And then for those of us, which is probably everybody in some point of their life, who were told you're not doing it right. That's not right. You need to be more this or less this or blah, 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 all the crap that we've heard. To have that experience of someone be a partner with you to pull all that greatness out of you and celebrate it versus telling you what you should be doing is a great feeling.
Something that I wrote down that you inspired here is even your example with your own personal experience of growing up in your family of extroverts, living other people's values versus living our own true values. Like you said, the shoulds. This is, to me, where the shoulds come in a lot, and how we unconsciously live it. We think they are our values. My guess is you have worked with clients where you've helped them take off these layers of shoulds that they realize are not their values, but other people's values or external from them in some way, external institutions or people or, whatever culture has put onto them. And then how do you help them get to the root of what their true values are?
Unfortunately, like with everything, there's no magic bullet or like quick assessment. I think the best way, the most effective way to glean values from any person is through meaningful conversations over time. There's really there's little tools and tricks and everything here, but there's really the truest way, because over time you build trust. With trust, you become more vulnerable. You start to show more of yourself. You become more authentic, and you just have a deeper, richer experience, and you start talking about things that have more meaning. And from that, you start to see what's important, what challenges, how they handled different experiences, what broke their heart, all kinds of different things that are these just nuggets of values that start pouring out of them through meaningful conversation. So that, I think, is the best way to do it. But not everybody can be in sustained, long, meaningful conversations. My one-day retreat, we work with values, it's a pretty small group of women, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 women, is around storytelling. And we have each woman take a little while to prepare, and we have them tell 2 stories. And one is a peak moment in their life, like a day or a moment or a period of time where everything was right, everything felt good, everything was in flow. And you have them describe that in great detail, like everything about it, who was around, how they felt, what was going on. But also on the flip side of that, you have them tell a story or describe what breaks their heart and what keeps them up at night. Because you can often tell from what upsets somebody, what gets them emotionally charged, that a value is not being honored, either through themselves or in the world. So 2 sides of the same coin is having people tell stories. And from that, you can begin to glean someone's values.
The way I begin the values conversation with clients where they want to bring values into their investments and into their money life is really starting with, in a way, it's storytelling, but I don't frame it that way with them. But it's getting them to think about what they're already doing in their life. So it's not stretching out there, reaching for something that's out there, but really just what are they already doing? Are they going to the farmer's market? Are they choosing to buy certain things over other things? Are they making food choices? What about their loved ones and money?
Donating.
Thank you. That is a big one. Yeah. Where are they donating? Because that will start to tell me, and then that starts to uncover what their values are and how they're already putting that into action in their money life. And then that can help us then get into a bigger conversation about their values and money and then help us focus on also how we want to have all of that inform their investment choices. So yeah, I'm very inspired by framing it with storytelling and maybe doing that a bit more intentionally. So I know that the deepest work is a process over time, but do you also have tools or an exercise that you do with clients or have done with clients around values to help them even know? I feel like some people don't even have a language, like they need to have more of a language for what values even are.
Besides the storytelling and over conversation, I've played around at workshops or with people with a deck of cards. It doesn't really describe them, but it's a deck of, I think, 52 cards, and they all have values words on them. And you have them flip through them as fast as possible. So they, as much as they can, bypass actual thinking and just see what their gut reaction is to each word and put them in piles. And then they keep sifting through that. They take the yes pile and keep narrowing it down, whittling it down to, 5, 6, 7 as they can. So the risk of just handing someone, explaining values and handing them a piece of paper to choose from, which is what a lot of the online assessments are, is they're probably going to be unconsciously swayed about what they feel like they should, what their values should be. Like if they're a parent and they don't pick family, they're like, oh, do I not like my kids? Like, what's wrong with me if I don't pick family? But in fact, another one of your values might be love or connection, which that includes your family. So I think this isn't a tool, but one thing we do to kind of go deeper in that space is as we're getting values or gleaning values, is having someone really define what that value means to them, because it's going to mean something different to every person. And we actually have them do some word clusters, like say your value is freedom or independence. What does that mean to you? Does that mean a life of solidarity, or does that mean more, I have my own money, I can do whatever I want? So to different people, different values. So we have them define it, do some word clustering around that. And then as you kind of like you're doing with your clients is I have them rate 0 to 10. How are you honoring this in your life right this second? And if it's not upwards, up there in 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, what are some things you can change or add in to honor that value more? There is one online assessment that I found that feels a little businessy, but it's Barrett Values Center PVA test, personal values assessment, and there's a free assessment online. And again, it's only probably 50 something words you choose from, but what is interesting about that is it gives you a pretty thorough, robust interpretation of the values and kind of puts them all together and says, you're a little bit like this, or you're like this, or this is where you are on the spectrum of this. So it's interesting.
Can you give us an example? Tell us a story of how you've worked with someone where they maybe came to you with a lot of shoulds around, values, and how you help them get more clear and live from their true, deeper values.
Yeah, two examples come up. One is more of sort of an external experience, and one is more of an internal experience. One person, she was at a job that she hated, a lot of shoulds, and kept working and working and working. She did everything, experimenting, and tried to protect all these different things, but the culture at her company was not working for her. She did a lot of personal growth. She tried everything, and it was just not working for her. So, and what we were realizing on the side, she really valued creativity and fun and freedom and nature and all these things, and 0 of them were getting met. And it was an uncomfortable, and it became more and more painful. So what she ended up doing was letting go of that job, leaving that job. She also had 2 investment houses, and she decided to sell those so she'd have a little wiggle room, because she realized they're not out of alignment, but they're not truly in alignment. So I really want some space and time and freedom to create something right now. So she sold the 2 houses. Had been working on what to do next, giving herself lots of space for creative endeavors and self-expression. And then because she had done all these things in alignment, what showed up in her community was a campground. She ended up buying a campground. which and she never, so because she had the money, it totally fit with her values. So she could run it. She was going to run it as a campground, which is her love of nature, but also start doing creative retreats, writing retreats, and open it up to different people for it to be a center of not just a campground, but actually a center for people for connection and creativity. So really living in a big way, out loud, living into her values. So she's just started down that process, which I thought was really cool, going from a crappy desk job that she hated over to, living outside on purpose and with fun and creativity.
And so what change have you seen with her?
We talk, and when we communicate, there's a purpose there. Like, she's on fire every time we talk. And again, I think there's growth opportunity. There's learning in every situation we're in. Even when we're in a situation that doesn't fit, there's so much learning we can do about ourselves. But instead of all her energy going into that learning and self-preservation, it's really going into creating something versus protecting herself, which is where she wants to be.
You said you had another example?
Well, I had another example that was it was an interesting example. I was working with a client who, when we were doing all of our visioning work and describing things in the future and what is really possible, we had done some values work, but there kept being this stuff coming up around, I can feel this, there's a softness. It was like a fabric thing. It was all very tactile, of wind in my hair, the perfect temperature. I'm relaxing on this beach. I am snuggling with this furry thing. And it was all very tactile and comfortable. And we, through a lot of this, we finally realized she had a value of physical comfort. But that was in contradiction with her self-identity. That was hard for her to hear, because she thought of herself, because she was an activist and an advocate, and in her mind, it was this very tough exterior. And I'm the one that care gives. I don't need anything. I provide, I'm tough, I do this stuff. So it was very hard for her. At the beginning, those were conflicting. How can I want to receive love and care and ease when I think of myself as this tougher advocate, fighter, all the stuff? And so it took a little while, but we did some work on expanding her lens or her view to include both of those things. So then, and the way that changed with money was it shifted. She could put that in the forefront when she's deciding where to go on vacation, what to spend money on, what she wants to do with her friends. So it changed. It added that piece to her lens when learning what she wanted to do and how to take care of herself.
I feel like that's probably a very common experience, this conflict of, I want to call it values guilt.
I love it.
And I feel like I've had my own personal experience of this as well. That was a great story to understand that a little bit more, how that can come up for somebody. And I think as we get older too and have more life experience, we get more into the core of who we really are versus what we think we should be, and then therefore able to get to more of our true core values. And with that, like you're saying, this activist having this maybe a values guilt, about what I should be in the world and what I should put my money towards, what I should feel is important, versus really, honestly, truly something that feels important for me to thrive is, like you said, for her, it was that some comfort and nourishing or something, that where she's receiving something back to help her rather than being the giving activist, maybe is part of the contrast for her.
I think I love that values guilt, because I think that does come up a lot in doing this work. And whether it's, you're a spiritual person who has value guilt about money, or you're, again, a family person, you have a family, but you're also crazy independent and you love your freedom, and you have this value guilt about ranking freedom over your family, but knowing in your heart that you need your free time or you need your adventure to actually come back and be a good parent or a good, caretaker, caregiver. So I think that does happen a lot. And it's, as we said, is adapting a both and versus either or, because we can be a lot of things at the same time, for sure.
Especially if we get clear and bring intention to it.
Yeah.
Then you can, like you said, you helped her through a process of bringing both into her life in a way that felt right for her.
Right. And we don't have to get every single value met every 100% of like every moment of every day. It's a kind of a continuum of, the bank account, or I need to put deposit freedom in here, or deposit this value. So when I go to work or go to this thing where I do want to take care of someone else, I have that, that values account has a lot of stuff in it.
I think for me, where the challenge can come up is values of security and adventure. Both of those are important to me. It feels like, they can pull against each other.
A little bit of tension.
Yeah, there's tension there. The core of our conversation, it's about money and values, but I wanted to start with this, bigger view of values in our life. So let's focus a little bit more specifically on money and our values. And if you're willing to share an example of how you've brought your values into your own money life.
I would say, the easiest way is donating, like you said, and that's almost, you don't even think about that one as much as I value this, so I'm going to do this. You're emotionally drawn to value. I'm emotionally drawn to donate in certain places. And it's always a reflection of my values: social justice, equality, environmental things. But I would say the spending, where I spend, is the biggest one I've become conscious of. I mean, there's places where I won't spend, where it's easy. I probably haven't gone into a Walmart in almost 20 years. I'm not going to go to Chick-fil-A. I'm not going to go to Hobby Lobby. Like, there's some big ones that are just like on my list, and I'm not, voting with my dollars. I'm not going there. I think other places where it's become important is giving myself permission, kind of that values guilt of giving myself permission to spend money on things that are important to me, even if they're not important to my family, my sisters, or any friends, or any woman my age. So like some of the solo traveling that I've done, it's, not everybody does that, and it's okay. And I used to feel a little bit guilty because I'm not married. I don't have children. And I almost used to compare myself, but I should be, not that all moms are suffering, but there's a lot of trials. There's a lot of pain. There's as much as there is joy and connection and all the great things about having children. I almost held back because I was like, oh, what if people look at me and say, how dare she go have a great time all by herself doing this crazy thing? And I mean, that was a long time ago. So I've learned to give myself permission to, no matter how silly or outrageous or off the wall or boring it may be, if it's something that lights me up and I want to do it, then allow myself to spend money on
it. Is there an example of what helped support you in being able to get into that place where you felt more comfortable making decisions from your core values rather than worrying about being judged?
I think it's a mindfulness practice. And it is a practice, like just being mindful of coming back to my heart when I'm feeling scattered or torn or tension or guilty or shamey or should or all that, is being aware of that and coming back to me, focusing back on my heart, coming back to what is my source, kind of that, a little bit of a spiritual practice of I am connected to everything, that thing that's bigger than me, settle down, take a breath, and then returning home, which is inside me, not my physical space, but kind of coming back to myself and back to home and shaking it all off and just, and seeing what are these triggers? What's coming up? What's really pulling me in that direction, or what's making me feel, and seeing if there's something else I need to work through. But I think noticing, again, like you said, what does it look like when we're out of alignment, is noticing when I'm feeling guilty or shamey or shouldy or any of those feelings, and kind of questioning that and seeing what's under the surface, and then coming back to my heart and back to home.
So what supports you in doing that? Is it journaling, meditating, other things?
A little, all of the above. I have a meditation practice. It's not quite daily. It's, a couple of times a week, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. Connecting with friends, having authentic conversations with friends. I do journal, not on a regular basis, but it's a tool I use when I need it. And going to kind of my weekly, going to Unity once a week, where I go to, it's a spiritual center where I go once a week, always helps and reconnects. And having fun, for heaven's sakes, is prioritizing fun and connection with friends, because that's sort of like the maintenance. Like, if I do the things I need to do to maintain staying in my heart or coming from that higher vibration, higher self place, I don't have to wait till it gets out of balance. So also, eating right and sleeping and all the fun stuff. But I think having fun and laughing and making those a big priority also help a lot.
So there's something that seems to be coming up for me with our conversation around values, which is balance, where going back to the activist example you talked about, the balance of activism is important and also self-care. You have to be careful not to go too deeply into one at the expense of things that are actually also important for us.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's the basic needs that we all have. And those might look different for other people or the amount of each one, but healthy food, rest, certain things. There's just those basic needs we all have. Again, the amounts and the kinds are going to look different. And then the values are the next layer of as an individual person. This is my next level I need for survival or for thriving. But as you said, if we're not meeting the basic core needs of rest, connection, nutrition, nurturing, however that looks like, we can't do anything. I mean, it's the biggest cliche, but putting on your oxygen mask first. If we get to a place we have nothing to give from, or we're not being very effective where we're trying to give. And understanding and acknowledging that I have privilege that I can back off when some people can't. I can step out of the fight because I'm not in it every day. I'm a middle class, educated white woman. I have privilege where I can step out and take care of myself, where I understand some people. So it is that tension, because that does come up a lot, and I feel the guilt sometimes of not doing enough. So again, it's coming back home, listening to my higher self, what's mine to do and what is enough, and then paying attention to when I need to reset.
Is there anything else around your work with clients where money and values have come in together that you'd like to share?
Kind of coaching in general, and money is energy. We've talked about this, or I've read some interesting books, as money is energy, and allowing a person the space and the freedom to figure out who they are and what they want, and then allowing them to spend their energy, whether that's time or money or emotional energy, however they want to spend that on what they want to do, is so, as you said, liberating. It's like this upward spiral. When they're feeling liberated, more confident, then they're taking better care of themselves, giving more out to the world. So it's just they're trusting themselves. So it's this wonderful upward spiral of living a more authentic life, giving yourself permission and giving back to the world at the same time. You have more, when you're being more solid in yourself, you have more to give out to the world too.
The core of coaching is to support someone in moving from living in a reactive way to living in a creative way, with intention about creating the life that they want, creating the impact that they want to have. And to be able to do that, it seems like our core values really are the platform to build that creative life, or to create that life from.
Right. And money's a huge piece of that, because when we're living on purpose and out loud and with intention and building up the spaces and the things that are really important, whether those experiences or structures or, houses or more training or less training or moving cities or moving whatever it is, but money is a huge part of that. And allowing, when I say give permission, I'm not giving them permission. They're giving themselves, they're getting in touch with and giving themselves permission to act more in alignment. And money is a huge part of that.
It's like the energy force of bringing that intention alive.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you shared one great resource that I'll put a link to with the values assessment you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. And there's the cards, the deck of cards. Leadership Challenge Workshop Value Cards. Okay. I was, thinking about money and values is I'm so appreciative of the work that you do in the world around money and values, because I think, donating is pretty easy. Spending pretty easy once you figure out what your values are. But I think investing is that third arm that seems to be the hardest piece to put your values in action when it comes to money. So I'm so thankful that you are there doing the work that you are doing with people to help us put values into action through money and investing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome too. So how can people find out more about your work?
Well, they can go to my website at JacqueSaltsman.com or go to my LinkedIn profile, or I'm on the socials too, Jacque Salt. If you go to my website, sign up for the newsletter, because the retreats and things aren't always 100% up to date. But if you sign up for the newsletter, I'll always send out monthly, maybe a little bit more every now and then if I have things coming up. But monthly newsletters will tell you what's coming up as far as offerings and services.
I love your website. I think it really gives people a sense of your spirit and life energy, so they can start to get to know you a little bit more.
I probably need to add a few more adventure pictures on there. But
yeah, your recent
trapeze
experience.
Yes, in New York. Yes, I still have bruises, but it was totally worth it.
Do you have space for new clients? And you said people can find out more about group things coming up and retreat.
Yep, there's ways to email me through the newsletter, or it also has my email address. I think phone numbers on there. I'm around. Yeah, have space for new one-on-one clients. I'm launching the informal discussion circle probably October, kind of to get people ready, or some support around the holidays. And then the next cohort for the professional group coaching will be in January. So I'll be sending out newsletters and information on that.
You told us earlier a bit about who you work with. Is there anything else you'd like to add as far as who's a good match for what you do and what you offer?
No, I think that's a good, it's really any woman who wants to grow her own leadership capabilities for whatever reason. If that's in corporate, that's great. If it's nonprofit, if that's just for community work, if that's to be her own boss in her own body and in her own family, that's great too. Building leadership and power from within, because I know not everybody identifies as being a leader. Not all women do, but I do think we all have a sense of inner authority that we have a right and a responsibility to acknowledge and to live from.
Is there anything we haven't talked about that you think it's important to add before we go?
I don't think so. I can't think of anything. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I always love spending time with you.
You too, Jacque. Thank you. And thanks for doing the deep dive around values.
Thank you.
Hearing about your work.
Thanks.